Okay, wake up, kids. We're back for another episode of Over a Couple of Beers. I'm Jason Cercone alongside Jason Collins, and our special guest for this episode, James Seitz from Stellmacher Brewing. Welcome.
Hey, what's going on? Nice to be here.
So, wanted to explain our intro music there. We've been letting you guys sit out there for a week wondering what happened at the end of our show. We kind of ended it Soprano style last week. Reason being was, hey, guess what? A technical issue on Over a Couple of Beers. What are you going to do? We have them, it seems, once a week. That was our snafu for last week, but that was the one we were trying to end with, so we figured, what the hell, we might as well kick off with that one tonight. So we're back in business for another episode tonight. We got James with us with some sour beers, so we're going to be talking about those and giving you guys some education on Stellmacher Brewing, all the good stuff James is putting out, and talking about his event out at House of 1,000 Beers coming this weekend. Before we get rolling into that, a couple things I wanted to talk about. If you guys haven't seen it yet, after lots of talk and lots of agonizing, the PCBN mobile app is now live on Google Play in the App Store. Go download it for free and check out all the cool stuff that we got on there. This month, if you get it downloaded, you're going to get free pizza from Caliente Pizza and Draft House. You just have to present your coupon at one of the two locations and get yourself a solid craft beer to go along with it.
Sounds delicious.
It is pretty good, and I mean, honestly, I don't think anybody listening hasn't had a Caliente pizza.
I like the chicken ranchero, no tomatoes.
That's decent.
Well, I was going to say the buffalo chicken pizza is the best I've ever had.
And the spinach and feta is my personal favorite, but I mean, ultimately, I'm not going to have a bad pizza there. At least that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, their crust is no joke.
No, they take it seriously.
Agreed.
Yeah, so before we get into talking with James about some of the sour beers, last weekend was a lot of fun here in Pittsburgh. I ran into some really cool people down at the Hell with the Lid Off event at Kelly's Bar and Lounge. If you guys go down there, you talk to anybody involved with that, please give them a tremendously huge high five for what they pulled off. That event was tremendous, front to back. The barley wine selection was out of this world, and that's typically not a beer that I gravitate towards, but I'm getting into those more and more, and that's the type of event that really helps hammer home a style preference or a like in a specific style preference. And
were you actually able to walk out of there? Or?
I was able to walk out of there. You'll learn more about the continuation of the evening in a moment, but yeah, they basically have you set up with a introductory flight of barley wines from various breweries. I did a whole write-up on what we had first, and then there was various flights and vertical flights from specific breweries. And like I had mentioned before, it's from some of the breweries that aren't even in existence anymore. So it was really a fun event. Those guys did a tremendous job. And when Hell with the Lid Off 2016 rolls around, make it a point to check them out.
Yes, sir.
So that was part one of the night. Then I rolled into the Pittsburgh Brew Fest down at the Sheridan at Station Square. And that was a blast. Me and Should I Drink That's Doug Durda judged about, I think, 15 to 16 local beers. And then actually some beers that were outside of the region as well. But
and I'm assuming Doug just said you should drink all of those?
Doug said that we should drink that, as he always does. And the one that popped for us was Nobelstein Brewing out of Indiana, PA, which is probably the one brewery you haven't heard of yet, and it's because they're just a few steps away from being in full production, and they put out an IPA and a Saison, and the Saison was the one when we both had it, were just blown away how good that was. Very full body.
That's interesting to hear, because Saisons typically don't make me excited.
Exactly right, and that was first sip. I said to Doug, I'm like, this is like no Saison I've ever tasted before, and then he took a sip and said, you were correct.
That is good news.
And that was great. So those guys, I don't have dates or anything, but I know they're going to be rolling out here very soon and hopefully seeing their beer in Pittsburgh. So shout out to those guys for doing a great job. They did end up winning first place. Also, they beat out some very stiff competition. Grist House Horizon Shine Pale Ale, which is another solid beer, took second, and Cold Drip City from Spoonwood Brewing took third. And those three were very, very tough beers to rank in any particular order, plus on top of all the other solid beers that we had, because there was a lot of good local breweries in the house. So that supported the Pittsburgh Rugby Club, another well-organized event, and in a very nice venue, very sizable for the amount of people they had. And I walked out of that one, but that's about the extent of
Not even a
that.
stagger?
Well, maybe stagger's a better
Okay.
better description.
I can't imagine going to hell with a lid off and just walking out of there just upright.
Not many people could.
I can't imagine.
I saw the list on that. I was kind of frightened myself. And then you went to another event after that?
Yeah, that's...
I'm impressed.
Well,
Yeah.
that was my prediction last week when we talked about doing both, that it was going to be a fun day. And it certainly was, but it was not the easiest of mornings on Sunday either.
I can't even imagine a barley wine hangover.
Ooh.
Oh, it's got to be so bad.
It's like whiskey, barley wine.
Right.
Yeah,
there.
it was.
It's right there.
Yeah, it was like doing shots. And then we did stop at a bar and did a couple shots, too. So I don't know what was running through our heads, but that happened. And it was...
It was definitely booze.
So I'm looking forward to partying with Doug again. The kid knows how to have a good time. So anyway.
Well, what'd you say? He's been doing the podcast for, 8 years now?
Yeah, should I drink?
Yeah,
I think he's been going for about 8 years.
He's
something like that.
experienced some beers
Oh,
and
yeah.
some events.
Absolutely. So that's all I've got to wrap up last weekend. And James, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm quite excited about what's going to be going on this next week, starting with the podcast right now and into Saturday with, I hesitate to call it a release of 2 beers that you guys have in front of you, more so giveaway. So I don't know if you guys have dug into them at all. This first
No, I
beer.
wanted to wait and get a little bit of a description
this
on what we're going
first
to be
beer
drinking.
right
And
here her name is Caitlin. She's a blonde sour beer with apricot, rosemary, vanilla, and bourbon.
I can smell the rosemary coming off the beer. I've been sitting here, it's wafting through the room, and I can actually smell a little bit of that rosemary in there.
It's really, really subtle as compared to the next beer, and that's why we wanted to drink that first.
Sure.
All right.
Ooh.
So just to give you guys sort of a description, my philosophy on brewing sour beer has definitely morphed into something unique, I would say, over the years, where it's just not brewing the traditional types of sour beer. It's more so using sour beer as a platform to create other flavor profiles.
Sure.
Like you might see some breweries, Cantillon, for instance, did Foo Foon with apricots, but they just did it with apricots, as opposed to taking a look and doing maybe some other classic flavor combinations, like, bourbon and apricot are very complementary, as is rosemary. You start putting those things together, and they become something completely different.
Yeah, this is given me kind of, this is way more complex than your average beer.
Oh, absolutely.
This is actually reminding me very much of a white wine. The way that the different flavors kind of meld in, and you they come and go, and that type of thing. So you kind of get that feel to it.
I think the straightforward acidity also lends to that as well. The way I construct my beers is more towards the acidity as opposed to more like the funky Brettanomyces types of flavors. Not that I don't like that. That's just sort of, we'll just say my brewing style, fermenting style maybe.
Yeah.
So what made you take interest in the sour beers? What was your thought behind getting rolling with that whole process?
I liked them tremendously, but was always very intimidated by them. My first real sour experience was when I was living out in Colorado. Went up to New Belgium Brewing in Fort Collins and had a bottle of their La Folie, which, for those of y'all that don't know, is a wood-aged Flanders Red. Unfortunately, they no longer, how would I say, they pasteurize it, let's put it that way. Now they pasteurize it, so it kind of becomes a different beer when they're putting it in bottles now. But it was, we'll say, revelatory experience. I always liked sour things, and this was a beer that was sour. And from there on in, I started to learn a little bit more. My first couple forays into brewing sour beer, we'll just say, not that they were undrinkable, they just weren't very good.
Yeah.
They weren't sour. I mean, 8 years ago, 9 years ago, when I started doing this, there just wasn't that much information out there.
Right.
And now, I don't know if I'd say there's a wealth of information out there, but compared to a decade ago, there certainly is. So, started kind of doing my own thing probably about 4 or 5 years ago, looking at the different ingredients, how they reacted to the different yeast and bacteria that you use, because like you guys said, this really isn't quote unquote normal beer. You know, there's the beer that I have that if we end up getting to, started out as a sort of an homage to Sierra Nevada's Celebration. It's an all Cascade double IPA, but with 2 strains of Brett instead of Chico yeast.
Okay.
So
That's interesting.
the Brett completely changed what Cascade does. Most people think Cascade, they think grapefruit. You know, I've given it to people kind of blind, not telling them what it was all about, and they're getting peach, they're getting mango, they're getting these other things that all of a sudden Brettanomyces does with those different hop compounds, and it's a different animal.
Now going back to Fort Collins, now pasteurizing. Now is that a function of just their size and they're a little bit more regulated as far as what they can do with their beers?
It is. It's part of their sour program size. Actually, is what it came down to with them. When they first started out, they hand bottled.
Right.
You know, off of probably like a 4-head Maheen bottler. They hand bottled all of their sour beers. So hand bottle them.
And anybody who's ever hand bottled a brew, what a backbreaking, ridiculous thing to do.
It's tough doing a couple cases.
Right.
They're doing thousands of bottles. So what they had to do in order to use their normal bottling line was they had to pasteurize it so it wouldn't, risk cross-contamination with their other beers. At least that's the line that
so they told you.
Kim Jordan from New Belgium tells, and Lauren Salazar as well. You know, they're gifted sour beer brewers. There's no two ways about that. But, the choice to pasteurize is something that I really can't get behind. I mean, there's some brewers where their inspiration came from was Rodenbach in Flanders, and they brought a guy over there that brewed from Rodenbach, Peter Buchart, and Rodenbach pasteurizes. So does probably the biggest producer of Oud Bruin, which is Leafman's. I don't know what to think about it. I mean, the beer doesn't mature.
So you
in
think
bottles.
it's the purists aren't really big on the pasteurizing?
Oh no, not at all. I mean, you can get microbes from making sour beer from most of the traditional lambic producers, from Cantillon, Dryfontinen, Boone, Oud Beersel, places like that. But as far as the Flanders traditions go, unfortunately, you can't get them because they are pasteurizing.
Okay. Yeah, I figured it probably, like you said, they gave that was the corporate answer of why they do it. But
they want to put more beer in bottles,
right?
I understand that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong. I mean, in Fort Collins has got to the point where they're under the thumb. Where when you're flying under the radar, you can get away with some things and unfiltering your beers and doing stuff like that creates different flavors for you to where you start pumping out 50,000+ barrels a year, and then all of a sudden the FDA is going, "What are you doing with this stuff?
Yeah, I mean,
how are you cleaning these things?"
I mean, they're massive. I mean, they're New Belgium's either near or over 1 million barrels. And they will be once they're Asheville.
Yeah.
We'll call it.
Right.
We'll call it a brewery, but we'll just say they're Asheville factory.
Right.
Comes
just
online.
pumping out.
Yeah, they're gonna produce a lot of beer, and I'm happy because it's good. Hopefully we get some of their.
Yeah, luckily the ones that are going coast to coast, I don't have a bad word to say about any one of them.
No,
the
majority of people don't, and that's why they're now coast to coast, which is awesome.
Well, there's plenty of beer companies out there that sell a whole hell of a lot of beer that I'm not a big fan of, but it just seems like the ones that are doing the bi-coastal moves. I'm not a huge Sierra Nevada guy, but I don't bash them either. But between them and Stone and Green Flash and New Belgium now and Fathead's going to the West Coast.
West Coast, right.
So it's at least it's the ones that you want to be bi-coastal, and not one of the ones that you're not huge on.
Indeed.
Let's just pour a little bit of this next beer for you because you said you have we'll say, dislike for saisons.
Oh, is that okay? So that's what.
So
now, would you call it a dislike or just?
I wouldn't say dislike. I would just say I haven't met one that wows me.
So this is a saison. It's basically, I don't know if you guys have had Midas Touch from Dogfish Head. This is essentially the same recipe except with a Saison yeast and 3 strains of Brettanomyces. So this is something that will mature over the months and years in the bottle. It's only been in the bottle for a short period of time. It's dry, peppery. I'm not sure how much of that saffron comes through.
Yeah, a little bit more. Not usually the Christmas that you're getting from a Saison. It's a little bit.
No,
more.
I'm kind of looking at it the way I'm looking at it because I'm getting like you were just saying, like a dry, peppery German wine. That's what I'm really getting out of this. But obviously a beer, so
very dry on the back. Very.
Yeah. No,
this is super attenuated. I mean, this is.
I feel like I should be drinking this with my pinky out.
Pinky up, bitches. But this is completely different from the first.
This is like a Gewürztraminer.
Yeah. I mean, this is very different from the first beer that we had. I mean,
certainly.
This is normal, we'll say, beer construction. I mean, hops, beginning and end, normal fermentation, no lactic acid bacteria or anything.
Right.
And this guy, pretty straightforward fermentation as far as the beer goes. Like I said, it will very probably change over time in the bottle.
How long did you say that was in the bottle?
It's probably been in the bottle about a month and a half or so, maybe 2 months. But, give it 6 months to a year. And, people that like to drink Orval or things like that, it's a very hoppy pale ale, Belgian pale ale. The first 6 months, a year down the line, all of a sudden you start getting a lot of those Brettanomyces characteristics in there. And that's because of what Brett does with all the different esters that normal beer yeast makes, and some of the hop compounds, cohumulones, isohumulones, things like that as well. Without getting too nerdy.
Yeah, I was going to say
earlier.
I've brewed beer in my garage and in my basement and stuff, and he's getting into a level that I'm just looking at him like, what the hell is he talking about? Takes
us back to 10th grade Kibby's class, right?
Right. Yeah. He's getting excited about the chemistry, man. He's all about the interworkings of it, and I was like, I bought this beer kit and I made some beer.
It came in a can.
Right. Well, yeah. That's exactly it. Is my malt? It comes in a can, and I dump it into my
And, you know what? I made a beer that was an extra at the last release, and I think the can of malt that I used to make this beer cost me $5. I mean, it was dark malt. Threw a couple strains of Brettanomyces at it, and people liked it. So, beer from a can is not bad. It's just beer from a can. I mean, that's just about it.
Yep. It's funny when I talk to guys who really do this, and how
they're on a whole new level.
Yeah, they're on a whole different level than me cooking in my garage. It's kind of crazy because I look at it and I brew, and I know the steps, but everything else that goes into it just goes right over my head. I just follow the directions and do what I'm supposed to do. Now I don't use a Mr. Beer kit, but it is it's 6-gallon carboys and that type of thing. So it's when I talk to somebody who's really getting into this stuff, it's awesome to me because there's so much more that goes into brewing this beer than
that's one of the things I've always loved about craft beer is so many stories of successful brewers started that exact same way.
Right.
In a garage with 6-gallon carboys from a can.
Not knowing shit
just
from
following
China
directions, and then all of a sudden we're in a position where we're tweaking recipes.
We're doing chemistry. We've got vials out. We're dripping things in and flicking it to see if a reaction happens.
Cook is pulling out on a low rider.
Yeah, it was cool to watch. What was it? The Brewmasters that was on. With Sam from Dogfish Head, and they had they kind of got in there, and when you look in the brewery and the amount of piping that runs through that place is absolutely mind-boggling. But to see they have PhD chemists in there just playing with stuff, seeing what's working and not working and how this affects this and all that stuff. It was crazy to me. I'm like, it's beer. It's just beer, and it's gotten to this point that it's like it's awesome. It's crazy.
Those big guys have those full-on yeast labs. I mean, they're not fooling around because they realize that healthy yeast means good beer.
Right. Well, and they've got a lot more to lose.
And
so.
that one episode, I think, was that about the...
They had to,
the
they had to,
120?
Yeah.
they had to
Yeah,
dump an
oh
entire
my God.
fermenter of beer, man. That
that's
was
crazy.
insane.
Yeah,
I
that's-
cannot. The amount of money that just literally went down the drain.
Yep.
is crazy.
And that's sad to watch, too, because 120 is one of the top beers you can get your hands on.
I
Just
would've-
watch them pour that down the drain.
It would have definitely been sadder if it was like World White Stout or something like that.
Well,
yeah,
okay, I would agree with you there for sure.
Yep. But yeah, they got a lot more to lose than a guy that's
Yeah.
it's got like 3 hours tied up in a
In
garage
the
cook.
6-gallon bench in your
Right.
basement.
Exactly. I can't. That sucks enough.
I know, that's what
Listen, I've got my. I haven't brewed in. Oh God, it's been 2 years probably, and I still have a ton of beer sitting. It's an IPA. God knows what's wrong with it at this point. It's been sitting for 2 years in my basement. A whole lot of it not drank. So
Yeah, that's
But it's
probably
in
not
bottles.
yeah.
Oh, so I mean, at least you have that going for it.
Right. Yeah, it's not a keg. It's
Well, I'll
not,
tell you what, my friend. I've got that kit that I got for Christmas. I shouldn't say kit. I got all the ingredients.
Right.
We got to brew, but we should crack open a couple of those IPAs that you've got sitting there and just see.
There's probably
Obviously,
some
it's
mud in the
not good.
bottom.
Yeah, I mean, Slimer may come out when we pop the
Well,
lid off.
I will say.
So don't cross the streams.
Well, I will say that we did pop those out last summer, I think it was.
At the draft party?
So yeah, a couple people popped one open, and it actually got better as it got because when I first brewed it, it was probably my third go at this IPA, and it just seemed like I could never add enough hops to it to get it to where I wanted it. But it seemed to get better as it actually got older than when I let it sit for the normal amount of time. Then you pop the beer open because you think it's ready and you go with it. But as it got older, it seemed to taste a little bit better. It's still it's foamy as all hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, the longer they sit in there, they get foamy.
I mean, you'd be surprised at how many home brews, because you don't introduce as much oxygen as like a commercial brewery in their bottling line would when you're
Right.
bottling at home. I've had guys, they keep their beers for 5-10 years down the line.
Really?
And just to check them out to see what happens. And as long as you were pretty careful, they're usually good. I mean, they might not be as good as they were initially,
Right.
but they're still good beers. I mean, it's home brewing has a leg up on commercial brewing as far as packaging goes. You're just not pushing as much oxygen.
Right, you got a
You
giant
get-
amount of liquid,
yeah.
and it's just getting pumped out through a line,
Yeah.
and just from going from, the thing that pumps out the beer into the bottle.
Yeah, you
It's
gotta-
way longer than what we would.
You got to think on top of that. Most of these breweries, they're filtering or centrifuging, and then on top of that, they're force carbonating. So their beer isn't alive.
Right.
Your beer in that bottle, it's
It's still conditioning
yeah, it's
in there.
carbonated with yeast. It's carbonated naturally, so you have a greater chance for that thing to survive over a period of time. You get some commercial beers.
He's got me all pumped up to go home and crack one
Yeah,
open.
crack one of those suckers open, man. See what happens. This next beer
Rolling on
is-
with the sours,
is
yes.
Lee. It's same blonde base. It's peach, lemon, bourbon.
Definitely got the lemon
and
going.
Well,
vanilla.
it's a bourbon on the nose. I tasted this earlier before we went on the air, and I could taste I got the bourbon on the nose big, and the nice lemon in the...
Oh, yeah.
I initially did not like this beer at all. It just struck me as something very, very strange. And it took me a while kind of drinking it to figure it out. I like it. It's just...
This is another one I think I would almost put in that white wine category, like you were saying earlier. It's got a little bit of that hint to it, but it's... I said for me, almost overwhelming. I'm getting lemon.
Yeah.
As I let it rest a little, I'm getting a lot more peach, but the lemon.
Yeah, I
was
get a
what
little
hit
bit of
me
peach, but as
hard
I
first.
rest it too, I'm getting.
I love the.
Well,
bourbon.
I'm
I'll
getting-
take
I'm
the
getting-
bourbon. I'll like the bourbon.
I'm getting the
aroma,
bread.
though.
I'm getting the bread. I'm getting that kind of bread flavor
Yeah.
on the back of my tongue.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is probably one of the more confusing beers that I brewed. And I like that. I mean, I'd like to be
Yeah,
able
the
to
complexity
sit there and
is-
kind of think
is
about
nice.
a beer that it doesn't all hit you in the face all at once.
So not to interrupt and get off the beer, but what's the inspiration behind the names that I've seen the names that you've had. They're typically people names, right?
Yeah, usually, I mean,
Bread, I understand, but
they're kind of all over the place, but most of the sour beers end up being female names.
yeah.
My wife does not like that so much. they end up being female names and female labels. No, nudity or anything along those
Damn
lines.
it.
Just,
I'm out.
Just female. Yeah, there's definitely no nudity. I mean, I've had a couple in there that were. Actually, the label for a beer that's still in the fermenter, that's, I'm going to do something with it probably around Craft Beer Week. It's called The Temptation of Eve. It does have a little bit of nudity. I like the picture too much to...
People need to get over it.
You got Satan, you got a nude girl. I mean, that's everyone's happiness, I think.
I'm fine with that.
But it's a beer. It's a sour beer that is blended with a 100% Brettanomyces cider. So that plus Calvados, which for those of you that don't know is apple brandy, and what else do we put in there?
Well, I love the theme that you're doing with that. If you're doing all the apple and then you've got Satan and Eve on the front, that makes
perfect
sense.
sense.
That's great.
Yeah.
But that's, it always made sense as far as sour beer goes that it had that feminine complement to it. It was sort of strange, mysterious, not only in technique but in what comes out at the end of it.
Right. What's the ABV on something like
All
this?
my beers end up coming out around 6% alcohol. I think that's kind of the sweet spot. For sour beer. The next one that we'll try is it's called the Purple Cloud, and it's a little bit higher, like more so around that like Oud Bruin level, 8% alcohol or so.
Any inspiration on the name of that one?
I had a picture and it looked really cool, and I didn't know what to do with it, and it was just one of those things that kind of hit me as the right time to use it. This beer, this particular variant, I did with pomegranate. There was another one that I did with cranberry, same base beer, and then I did one with both. And by far and away, the people seem to like the pomegranate the most. So we brought that out and see what that does.
It's the
Purple Cloud.
It's the fruit of the week, or the hot. It's been longer than a week.
Have you ever had Palm, dude?
I'm a fan of pomegranate. I'm just saying it's very.
I'm talking about the drink Palm. Have you had Palm?
I have not had
Palm is good.
Yeah.
Palm is very good.
I always think the thing about it is, trying to get this fruit to come in and being able to taste it, but, it not being so overpowering.
It definitely would lend itself to be sour, too, so that's
Definitely.
perfect.
Yeah, easy. Wow.
So this is a big change from what we've been drinking.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely that bitterness on the back end like a pomegranate has.
Bites on the front, too.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of difficult drinking these beers all back to back.
It's all right.
Taste buds are getting a workout.
Sour beer equals ratings. Right?
They can't see the sign you're holding up.
Can you?
He's flipping me off. I see what he did. It's a very nice color, too.
Yeah.
It's kind of got that...
Pomegranate.
Well,
like,
no, it's
almost
like an orangish, almost like
Yeah.
a dark sunset color. Looks really good.
And I mean, this beer, fruit-wise, had way less fruit than the other ones that we tried. But it was just, like you said, pomegranate's one of those fruits.
Naturally bitter.
Yeah,
so.
it's already bitter. It's already sour.
Mm-hmm.
You use too much of it, and you're in bad territory right there.
Right, you got tears coming out of your eyes.
Yeah, because this was a decently sour beer to begin with. From a lactic acid standpoint, you add that citric acid from the pomegranates or the cranberries, and then too sour, not a good thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, that's one of those things I think with some people they're like, well, I wish it were more sour. I'm like, well, why? I mean, you want
how sour? Yeah,
you
really.
want something balanced. I mean, most of these beers come in around, again, at the risk of getting a little bit nerdy, they come in at about 3.5 pH, 3.6 pH. And you start dropping lower than that, it starts to get undrinkable.
Right. You're getting
like I said,
you're getting reflux.
Yeah, I mean, more sour. More sour doesn't mean it's a better beer. It's just what it comes down to. You want a consistent product, and you want people to be able to drink a bottle of it as opposed to drinking a glass and being like, I can't drink anymore. I'm all done.
Right. It doesn't
Yeah.
have the same characteristics of
Yeah.
a hop where,
Exactly.
you know, the hoppier it gets, a lot of times the better it gets.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you go this route where if it's super, super sour, then all of a sudden it's just like it hits the taste buds and you're instantly reacting.
Yeah.
You know.
It gets too sour. It's like drinking like the white stuff at the bottom of a Sour Patch Kids bag.
Right.
Yeah, just that.
I mean,
s-
There's a
Right,
reason
you're
why
literally-
they drink
your
it,
face-
right, like
you know,
that
it's just-
sugary, sour.
Your face is
yeah.
literally puckering up. You know?
Yeah.
You don't want that. You definitely don't want that.
Yeah.
And if you do that, obviously you're not a big fan of the beer. Same thing with, you know, you throw a nice hoppy beer in front of somebody, they take their first drink and they make that face. You're like, oh, they didn't like that.
Yeah.
you know immediately.
Right, and that's what's neat about these two, and I think we're seeing more of it now. Is that we're kind of as a beer community shifting towards these sour beers, whereas I would say even as long, I mean, maybe 2 years ago, I don't think there was a lot of demand. And if it was very small. But now you're seeing more and more beer enthusiasts come along that are seeking these out and finding out more about them. And that's why I thought it was great that we could sit down and do this show, because I wanted to learn more about it from a knowledge perspective, just to get more
and as
about
more
the
and
brewing
more and more
process
people
in
getting
my
into
head.
craft beer, it becomes this. Well, what's next?
Right.
What are you going to come up with next? And it's not like sour beers are new, but they're kind of uncharted territory.
Right.
As far as the novice craft beer drinker goes.
Yeah, and I think, you know, from what I've learned in my own research behind the sour beers, is it's probably because it's such a, and James can probably attest to this. It's such a complex and difficult venture to put these beers together and have the end product come out as good as these beers we're drinking tonight, because
Right.
it takes an incredible amount of patience to get to that point where it's sitting for how many months before you can finally say, okay, that beer is ready. And that's how I've always looked at this particular beer style, is that if you don't have the patience to go at it, and again, from a commercial brewery standpoint, they've got to get their product out. So they're looking at more of how, you know, what's the turnover rate, or how fast can we get this beer out to the public versus.
Yeah, beer like this becomes a specialty. It's not
Exactly
It's not
right.
a normal release for them. It's a big, like, special release for 2 months. This is all we have because it's taken us this long to do it. So
Well, it's like you said, this isn't a beer that's going to be ready in 10 days
Yeah.
or 2 weeks. This is something that's going to take a significant period of time. And on top of that, space. Things that, especially
Right.
these new breweries like in Pittsburgh, they don't have. They
don't
don't
have the tanks
extra
for it, right?
space.
Right.
You get these massive breweries like New Belgium, they have a whole wing. Like
right.
breweries like Allagash, they got a whole wing
Yeah.
for their sour program. Same thing with like Russian River, places like that. And then you have this whole new breed of sour only breweries that they're fantastic, but that's all they're doing.
Right.
That's their space.
Well,
what
then
they're doing with it.
they're probably loving the fact that this is starting to get some traction. My cousin, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, or maybe it was last week. My cousin, he's the head of Blunt Force Brewing down in Stafford, Virginia. He just posted that he just finished up a sour porter, and that's definitely something I've never dabbled into. So I'm very interested to try that and see.
Yeah, that's fantastic stuff. I mean, that's where, in English tradition, that's where we get some of our strains of Brettanomyces were, old stock ales,
Yeah.
That porter type of beer that, the Brett didn't really make it sour, probably to some extent, and not to get too technical with it, but, Brett gets exposed to oxygen. It'll give you a little bit of acetic acid, so you'll get, sort of funky, with those strains, you'll get a little bit of tropical fruit and then maybe some acetic acid.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, some people really dig on the roasted sour type of thing. I'm not one of those people. I don't mind them. I mean,
Yeah, I've never had one, so I'm
Yeah,
interested.
that sounds like an interesting combination.
Right.
For sure.
Jolly Pumpkin does a beer called Madrugada Obscura or something along those lines. I'm probably mispronouncing that, but it's a sour stout.
Yeah.
And it's good stuff. Jolly Pumpkin does some wild and wonderful beers.
Yes.
But
I love these brewing companies that are they're basically all like crazy beers. Like Cigar City is just like, well, we have High Lie, but everything else around it is just, we've got cucumber ales and,
Yeah.
and all kinds of great, weird.
What can we come up with next to go against
Right.
the grain? That's
Yeah,
what
yeah.
makes this awesome. That's what gives us...
Yeah, we're not going to specialize in everything that everybody else has.
Exactly.
We're going to kind of go off and experiment and see if we can make this work.
Yeah. Where the beer keeps flowing. I like this. We gotta have James on every week.
Yeah,
This is
seriously.
So I lied to you guys. This beer does have a name. This is the beer that I said didn't have a name. I mean, I still want to find out what you guys want to name it.
This is the
Well,
lemon,
we didn't talk about
lemony
it.
flavor
when,
one.
When James and I were talking, he had sent me a list of what he was bringing tonight, and one of them didn't have a name, so I had the thought of maybe we could try to name it on the show. However, I don't know. But well, if it's already got a name, we don't want to besmirch the name. But what are we drinking? Whoa.
So this is a 100% Brett beer with
Wow.
The hops are kind of an obscure hop called Cercone. They're a parent hop to Cascade and lemon zest.
Yeah, there's definitely there's more hoppiness to this than the other ones we've had.
And you know that bitterness you get on the back end, that's not
that-
hops. That's Brett.
That is extremely bitter on the back end.
Yeah.
Extremely.
Yeah, so you get those hops. and
So you
then
said
on top
it did have a name?
Yeah, it does.
Are you embarrassed of it?
No, I like the name. I think the name's fantastic. It's just, I thought it would be a good idea for you guys to come up with the name on
You
your own.
haven't, I mean,
Well, what-
have you listened to our last 5 podcasts? I don't know if that's the best idea or
Yeah,
not.
you don't want us to. Well, what is the name that
So,
you have for
her
it?
name's Marguerite.
Okay. Is there a reason?
No.
Just that's the one that
You
came
know
to.
what? Here's the thing: is like naming's weird. Naming beers is weird. It's one of those things. Either you come up with some weird hop pun, or
Which are always
No
fun.
one's ever done that.
no, not at all. Or you do something that's a little bit more kind of far flung, and then people look at you like you're some elitist snob. And there's not a whole bunch of middle ground with it. So either it's fun or it's too serious.
Yeah.
But I hear different names. I hear different phrases. Google them as far as images go on the internet. Scroll through, 20, 30 pages of images. See if there's something I like. If there's not, back to the drawing board.
Sure.
And so most of it, the thing that attracts me mostly is the visual of, what this name or what this phrase kind of brings up on a Google search.
Right.
there's-
So what did Marguerite bring up
I wish I had the
other than
the
Italian
label.
porn?
Lots of porn, definitely some porn. It's always surprising when you Google certain names. It's just pages and pages of porn.
So it's like a bonus.
Not that I mind. I'm like, there's just not going to be an image here because it is all porn.
So it's just like Italian, like. Women,
Oh,
women
I'm going to
making
name
out-
this one Lexi.
Women making out on top of a bowl of spaghetti.
You're like, there's definitely going to be strippers in this search. so you might have to.
This one's called Cinnamon.
Yeah, it's never going to be a beer named
definitely
Crystal.
not that one.
You're right. All right, so this one's Marguerite. Now, what were you saying the notes were that you typically find in this one?
This beer.
Like you said a lot of Brett. Like
Yeah, definitely a lot of
100%
Brett.
Yeah.
A lot more earthy hop character. I get a little bit of the lemon zest.
There's a little, yeah.
And
I don't get a lot. I mean, and you can tell me this doesn't necessarily take on the profile of a completely sour, right? Because I don't get a lot of sour.
no, I mean that's the
from
one
this
big thing that I
particular
always try to get through with people is Brett won't make your beer sour
beer. Okay.
at all. With an addendum. I mean, Brett can produce acetic acid, vinegar-ish sourness, which tends to be rather unpleasant to people. The sourness people are looking for is lactic sourness from lactic acid bacteria. And the two main species that do that are lactobacillus or pediococcus. But Brett won't do
Where
that.
have I heard pediococcus before?
I don't know. Possibly in a porno search.
Yes. That sounds like it might be an illegal porno search, though. He got arrested for
Were you-
looking at
were you-
pediococcus.
Wow. Is that now a punishable
They-
offense?
they-
I
they-
didn't think
they-
that was punishable.
I believe that's 5 to 10.
Yes, the FBI stole my computer because it had pediococcus on it. Jesus. Well, you said it has an earthy hop. Why don't you name it Eartha?
Did not think of that. I need to really collaborate with you on the name.
We did it. It's done. We named a beer.
And then you can have the old Catwoman on the label.
Every time I think of her, I think of Boomerang.
Yeah.
And it's
Marcus.
just horrible. That was a horrible movie.
Marcus. Can the lights go any lower?
All I keep thinking that when you talk about Boomerang is Grace Jones wanting to name her perfume Afterbirth.
Yes.
It's like the best part of the movie.
Let me tell you, like pretty much anything after 1988 with Eddie Murphy was pretty much crap. But Boomerang is a very underrated movie.
You know, there are good parts of it, like when my man comes in and he's like, "You got to coordinate." And he's got
Witherspoon. Yeah, because he's got mushrooms on the inside of his coat, and he's got mushrooms on the inside of his pants, and he's got a handkerchief that has mushrooms. You have to coordinate.
And then he's got like mushroom cufflinks.
Yeah.
It's just fantastic.
That movie's kind of great. Like, who else is? Well, Halle Berry's in that movie.
Halle Berry's in that.
Good Lord, does she look fantastic in that movie? As mostly anything,
what movie doesn't she look?
But she was a newbie back then. Like this was '92,
yeah,
I think.
She definitely had some thicker eyebrows, and her boobies weren't as pronounced.
But she looked fantastic, and then there was the whole bit about Martin Lawrence and David Allen Greer and Eddie Murphy are sitting around because he was with the girl the night before and her toes were all messed up. And they have a whole thing.
The whole thing about hammer time.
Yeah. He pulls up the blanket and he sees the girl's toes and he literally leaves. He couldn't handle it anymore. That movie is very underrated.
Awesome.
I have not watched that in some time. I was a fine connoisseur of Eddie Murphy films.
Yes. Well, like I said,
Coming to America. Definitely.
Yeah, I was gonna say after Coming to America, most of them are garbage, but that one was a little gem. I think. Definitely think that. All right, so let me finish this one up.
So this beer actually does have a name, and is not a woman's name.
Whoa.
So this is that Cascade Double IPA.
Okay.
It's
you said this one was like which one was it you're comparing this one to?
This is like a beer that's from it's a part of the Terra Locale series from Wicked Weed. So they did a beer almost exactly like this. Cascade Double IPA.
This tastes way more traditional than. Very smooth.
But this is a departure from, again, anything there. It's IPA-ish.
Right. I was going to say, it's almost on like a lighter take on an IPA.
Right.
And this is a dangerous IPA, I think.
ABV on this one?
11%.
Oh, this will put a hurting on you real quick.
Cool. There's still some of this left, right?
Yeah.
This to anybody out there, this does not taste like an 11% beer at all.
I could see this one sneaking up on us real fast.
Yep.
And like we talked about, you don't get a lot of those same, Brettanomyces characteristics that you got in the last beer or the other ones. I mean, this is an IPA. And this is like the breadth and width of what you can do with these different, microorganisms. You could really have a brewery that just ferments with Brettanomyces if you wanted to, and make quote unquote normal beers.
Yeah.
But not many people are doing it. I think they're kind of afraid. They're like, I don't know what to do, and that's really sort of the new frontier, coming.
Yeah, it's what can you do now?
Years,
we've had the IPAs and we've had the stouts and the porters and the pumpkin beers and the barley wines. What's next? What's going to be the next beer flavor that?
Yeah,
us hipsters can go out.
There's a lot of you're seeing a lot now the barrel aging, the bourbon barrel, the Scotch barrels. There's a lot more of that coming around. This is, I think, becoming just as prominent in regards.
Well,
to
the barrel aging thing is
just
that thing's almost jumping the shark already. Like almost every beer now is like, oh, we have a bourbon barrel aged version of this.
I'm really kind
That's
of
okay.
interested.
I'm fine with it, but I'm just saying it's it's something
you're
that's really prominent now. Like everybody's got it.
Like everyone and their grandmother's doing it type of.
Right. Yes, that's exactly
I'm
where it's
interested
at.
to see what Voodoo's gonna do. They have a bunch of barrel aged beers coming out this coming Saturday, and one of them is like a massive triple IPA or something like that.
I like that one.
Aged in tequila barrels.
Oh,
No,
you.
For me, that just has like disaster written all over it. But voodoo.
I gotta go change my pants.
but voodoo.
Well, here's
they
the question:
do a
what
great
kind of
job.
tequila were they aging this in?
I don't
'Cause if
know.
it's Cuervo,
I
it's
don't
gonna be
think-
awful.
I don't think it was Cuervo.
I hope
pretty
not.
Sure it's not Cuervo.
Don Julio, I would think.
Oh,
I
if
mean,
that-
that's
well, or
probably
Patron
one of the
or-
premier
or-
ones. I mean, yeah.
I mean, if
Yeah.
you're doing one of those, like I drink that, it's like candy to me. But Jose Cuervo is dirty garbage. So I
You
hope they're
think
not
that
doing.
most of those tequila barrels
I
are
don't think they mess
repurposed
around with
bourbon
that.
barrels. That they
Well,
get
yeah, that's
from
true,
bourbon
because I
distilleries.
have
So it's
a-
like,
Right.
I have a very expensive bottle of tequila at my house that was aged in sherry barrels. So they
Oh,
used
yeah.
and it's probably exact. It wasn't supposed to be,
Is that sta-
but
is
that
that
was
that-
cheaper than getting new barrels. As we went and used these old sherry barrels and we put tequila in
Is
it.
that that same stuff you brought back from Cabo? Or
Yeah, the porcelain bottle and stuff.
That's some solid tequila.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's called Class A Azul. If anybody wants to, you have to go across the border to get it. But
Or go to his house. Should I say
it's
your
almost
address on
gone.
here? Oh.
It's almost gone. To be honest with you, I have a shot of that from now from time to time.
Nice.
But it's good stuff. So yeah, that seems like a barrel aging frontier that's not really been tapped into is the tequila side.
I mean, tequila and rum, you'll see them occasionally.
Well, the
you
rum
think
barrel
the-
age-
yeah,
barrel
like the
aged-
pumpkin, the rum
Yeah,
barrel pumpkin. Or rum
but it just
barrel,
seems
that was
like
good.
it really seems like tequila would go so well with an IPA because it's already got that citrusy
Yeah.
kind of character to it that aging it in tequila would be really cool.
I'm interested to find out. I mean, I'm always skeptical of new things, which is strange because most people look at the beers that I brew and they look at like you're insane.
Right.
You're out of your mind.
You're like, I've been doing this for 8
Yeah.
years. What are you talking
doing?
about?
So doing things like tequila barrel aged IPAs maybe isn't so crazy.
Maybe that's the next big thing.
Well, at least you're not
Yeah.
chewing up corn and spitting at your beer. You could be doing some chicha.
That was a fantastic episode.
Yeah, well,
because-
I
all
guess
the
they.
troopers that they have working at
Because they're all
Dogfish
just
Head.
sitting there
Well, they
chewing
still make
corn
it, I
all day.
guess.
Yeah,
It's a special.
yearly,
they,
yeah,
they
I
still make
don't
it.
think they do it yearly. I think it might be every other year. I'm not
Something like
I'm
that.
not 100% positive.
I would totally try it.
Yeah. Oh, I would too.
I told just to say.
Actually,
I
I had someone tell me that it wasn't like something that they would put as their go-to beer, but they said it was okay. They didn't.
I would imagine it probably
being the
wasn't
type of
that
guy
bad.
that's going to try any beer once just to give it a whirl to see.
Yeah, what did I
would
see?
try that
There's an
once,
Icelandic
absolutely.
beer that's made from whale balls. I
Whale
saw.
balls.
Yeah, it's made from whale balls.
Well, there was an article, and this is going back a ways, but I came
I
across.
might draw the line at whale balls.
You're the one person that would draw the line at whale balls. But I had gone back probably.
Ouch.
Set them up and knock them down. Whatever.
This is probably going back like 6-7 months, but I had come across an article of like 5 just absolutely ridiculous things that people were brewing, or breweries were brewing their beer with, and most of them were on the West Coast. Go figure, because that's where it
They
seems
just-
like a lot
they
of
just
the most
seem-
of the
yeah, they
crazy
just
stuff
seem to
comes
have a
from, like,
handle on it, you know?
cockroaches or something like that. Like
They're willing to try anything.
Yeah, the one
This
that they
might
said
work.
was like
This might work.
One that they said was very popular was blood orange, and actually that.
Oh,
was
you know,
really-
I just
saw another one come out that was done
Yeah,
with blood orange.
yeah. I just saw.
can't
It actually, a
it's
bigger
slipping my
brewing
mind now.
company, I think, just came out with a blood orange. And
Yeah.
have you ever had a blood orange?
Have I?
They're
That's a great
wonderful.
question. Yeah.
They're wonderful. So I would imagine the
Yeah.
beer is probably gonna be pretty good.
As my nana would say, it's because of the dope that they're brewing these strange
Yeah,
beers
right.
out there. It's the dope.
Well, there's the next frontier. Actually, is going to be the THC infused beers.
Interesting.
I just figure if you want to do that, just
There's already a few doing
just
it.
roll up
Just
a joint,
roll up a
smoke
doobie,
beer.
right?
Yeah, because isn't
Absolutely.
that one of the benefits of smoking it is the fact that the feeling comes on almost immediately versus having to drink 6, 7, 8 of them to get to the point where you're like, oh, I could have just.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Over a Couple of Joints.
Well, listen. I mean, if you put that in the beer, would it make the beer a little bit? Because marijuana and hops are the same, almost the same.
Well,
thing.
I mean, and you think of some of those very dank hoppy beers,
right?
that get
So you
that-
would think
your
putting
first note-
marijuana in
your
it would be
first-
like
yeah.
totally like
Sure.
completely skunky. Like you open that beer and it's just wafting through the house. You know, your whole house smells like it when you open the beer.
Yeah.
It'd be an interesting take on it. I know there's already some brewing companies out there that are
So apparently it doesn't work.
no.
What you have to do, and I've never done this myself, but what you have to do is create a tincture. So you have to soak the pot in grain alcohol,
Mm-hmm.
and it will liberate, just like hop oils, the same thing. Yeah, please don't do this at home.
Disclaimer.
And then you can put that into your beer, and that's how it's been successfully done. You can't dry pot it.
I can't imagine that
You
would
can't
be
just
the way.
the amount of pot that you have to use would be cost prohibitive. First of all, you can't put pot at the end of your boil and brew beer.
Sure.
That way. It just doesn't work.
You just legally have to be in one
You're
of
throwing
the
away
three
good.
states right
You're just
now.
throwing away good weed.
So again, waste of weed. It's way better to put it in your vaporizer and smoke.
Yeah,
If
well,
if
yeah,
that's
I
your
would
thing,
imagine,
then
Yeah,
absolutely.
if that's your cup of tea, do that and then drink.
But
drink
there's
a big IPA.
there's such a big demand for edibles now. It seems that they're legalizing everything that you would think that
Yeah.
there's
Well,
gonna be some sort of demand for infused.
if we're doing this podcast in 5 years, maybe that's what we're talking about.
Right.
And there's a brewer that
That's all they-
revolutionized brewing with pot.
That's
You
all
never
they
know. And this is something that's a world that's evolving. So who knows? But I'll stick with these sour beers right for now. They're doing good. So this is the end of our samplings, right?
This is it.
This
is
is
all I
it.
got for
Cool.
you.
That was a good end. I
That was
like that
good.
one. But
Yeah.
so this Saturday, you've got a big event out at House of 1,000
Mm-hmm.
Beers. You know more details about that, so please feel free to talk
I'll
about
be out there
what's
from
going.
1 to 4. All the bottles that I brought with me, unfortunately, are already spoken for. But come out, press the flesh. Have a talk. They have a big event going on with the initiation, I guess, of their big beer week.
Yeah, I've got the list here. This is
Speaking of heavy alcohol,
this is a pretty crazy list of beers. So this is going to be beers these are all going on tap, right?
Yeah, the first couple are going on tap on Saturday, and then the rest throughout the week.
Okay, so starting on Saturday the 14th, we're looking at. I'll go through these because it's a crazy list. North Coast Old Stock Ale, 2013, 2014. Old Stock Cellar Reserve, 2013 Old Ale. Goose Island Bourbon County Barley Wine. Dogfish Head Old School Barley Wine. Weyerbacher Insanity Bourbon Barley Wine, and Duclaw Hell on Wood Barley Wine. So on top of the sour beers, you got all that to look forward to. So download the PCBN app. There's a portion of that app that I set up for ride services. Click on that, and once you go to this event, you can get a ride.
he thought of everything, folks.
I tried. Sunday the 15th is Brew Gentleman Winter Warmer Scotch Ale going on. Monday the 16th is Stone.
He's uber Cercone.
Shh. It's the name no one can know about. Monday the 16th, Stone Double Bastard American Strong Ale. Tuesday the 17th, Dogfish Head Raison de Extra Belgian Style Strong Ale. The 18th, bringing Dogfish Head 120-minute Double Imperial IPA. We talked about that earlier.
Yummy.
Amazing. Thursday the 19th, AleSmith Wee Heavy. Friday the 20th, AleSmith Grand Cru. And then Saturday the 21st, to cap it off, they're bringing out Port Older Viscosity American Strong, Great Lakes Blackout Stout, Lost Abbey Deliverance, Thirsty Dog Siberian Night Imperial Stout, Goose Island Bourbon County Brand Coffee Stout, and Bullfrog Negative Karma Ball Farmhouse Imperial Stout. Wow.
Now, I wonder,
this is one
is the Great Lakes
killer
Blackout?
freaking list.
Is that going
Barrel-aged blackout.
Is it going to be the barrel aged?
Barrel Aged Blackout Stout? Yeah, it doesn't say that on
Oh,
this,
it
but-
fits that.
yeah.
Wow.
Oh
that's-
my god, that beer
We're
is
gonna be in
so
we're gonna be in
good.
Virginia Beach, man. We can't go to that.
Damn it.
Dude.
Damn it.
That would've
Maybe
been one to get out
maybe
there for.
since we plugged the event, you might keep some aside for us or something.
A little something.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I'll tell you what, man, the bourbon barrel aged blackout stout is probably number 2 all time for me. My favorite beers.
Yeah.
That stuff is. They only used to serve it at the brewery,
Yeah.
but now they're bottling it, and you can still kind of only get it around Cleveland in the bottles.
I don't think I've ever had it barrel.
Oh, good God, dude, it's
But-
so good. It is so very, very
Yeah,
good.
so that's next week, or starting this Saturday at House of 1,000 Beers. So get out there, see James, learn some more about sour beer, and get your hands on some of this ridiculousness, because that is a solid list of beer, for
Yes,
sure.
sir. Yes, sir.
So, you like football?
Love football.
All right,
Oh, sweet.
so Jimmy Graham to the Seahawks? What?
Dude, I lost
What?
my mind yesterday. Did you, Roto World crashed. Did you see
Is
that,
that
at
because
4
of that,
o'clock?
or just because of free agency in general?
Well, just in general, but like I tried to go on Roto-World to find out if this was true, and I'm like, I'm clicking, and nothing was happening. I was freaking out, but that was a complete shocker. And then Haloti Ngata going to the Lions to replace Sue, that was huge. Frank Gore putting up the middle finger to Philly.
The Colts, they got Andre Johnson today. So they're taking a run. I mean, and they're catching two guys at the end of their career. But
Philly picked up Ryan Matthews today.
Yeah, I saw that.
Still going after DeMarco Murray. I guess
Philly is.
They're still trying to get him. And they said the Cowboys only offered him $5 million a year,
which is ridiculous.
Wow. The dude ran for 1,900 yards last year.
Then is a stud and has a lot of years left.
Right. Well, he's a little bit injury prone. I think, and I think early on the Cowboys actually kind of threw this little tidbit out there that like, oh, well, we only think that he ran for that many yards because of the offensive line to like make other teams not really want to
stay away.
Right.
So they're going to rely on Joseph Randle.
I don't know. Well, there's still a lot of talk that Adrian Peterson ends up there.
That makes sense.
Because there's a good chance they get Adrian Peterson cheaper than DeMarco Murray.
Somebody's going to get him cheap.
Wow.
Right.
The
Vikings are still trying. The Cardinals, I guess, are still trying to get Murray.
I don't believe Adrian Peterson likes the Vikings that much right
No.
now.
No, they kind of bailed on him.
Yeah.
When all this stuff went down, so you kind of can't blame him.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Well, whatever. It is what it is.
I'm still a little bit amazed that Jason Worlds is retiring.
I think a lot. I mean, and that's something that came up today. There's a lot of early retirement.
Well, here's my take on that. I actually thought about this.
Do you think it has anything to do with the whole concussion
part? I think part of that. I think part of that is, but I also think another big part of this is you have these young men that come in and they make a boatload of money, especially early.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Worlds signed a franchise tag last year. Was what, $10 million he made? He would have never made that signing a contract. He probably would have been at $7.5 million a year.
And did he live up to that expectation?
No, of course not.
Of course not.
But you take that money plus what he made his first 3 years in the league, you add that up. If he was smart and he invested and he maybe bought some businesses and did some things like that, he never has to work an actual job the rest of his life. And if you're a guy who doesn't love football but just happen to be very, very good at it, you step away. You walk away. I just over the past 4 years, I just made $15 million.
I don't know how old Worlds is. I mean, Jake Locker. Jake Locker's 28. I mean, and these guys are walking away healthy. I mean,
Willis leaves as the best linebacker in football.
That was the one.
8 years.
That was the one that shocked me.
And part of his was that he wants to walk when he's 40. Yeah. He doesn't want to be one of these guys that's crippled.
No, I think that's Earl Campbell's the template of what can happen if these guys bruise.
Well, have you seen Dorsett lately? He's a mess. He's a mess.
That's a total shame. I mean, what ended up. I mean, and that speaks to the whole problem that the NFL's dealing with the concussions. Yeah.
Right. He doesn't know his address. He doesn't know where he lives. Literally,
right.
Does not know where he lives.
So it's turning into this thing where this knowledge has started creating a little bit of fear with the players on what's life going to be once I leave here.
You know, the weird thing with Worlds though is that he would have signed a contract that guaranteed him $15 million. So guaranteed. I mean, he could have retired in the middle of a season and he's still guaranteed $15 million.
Yeah, but you don't want to be that guy. I mean, you don't.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah, you don't want to be that guy that walks, says, "Oh, I got it," and I walked away. Yeah. He's more of a guy that got it, fulfilled his contract, and then walked away.
Yeah.
And if again, there's a whole bunch of players out there that don't love what they do.
Yeah,
they're just good. There was a basketball player for the Timberwolves that just retired because he just happens to be good at basketball because he's 6'8" or whatever he is, and he can play, but he doesn't love it.
Yeah, you can.
And he made a good amount of money, and he's like, I'm going to go be a businessman. I'm going to go do whatever I want to do, and I'm going to walk away from this, and I'm going to be able to walk away from this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a mess when I'm 40 years old and contemplating suicide because I've had 15 concussions.
Right.
And, it's starting to become a real thing. And Jake Locker realized, I can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
I can't play this game and stay healthy. And he's
that actually had some potential.
Well, he's considering playing baseball.
Oh, yeah?
He's very good at baseball. And I think he was actually drafted as a
I think you're right.
pro player.
I think you're right.
So he can go there, probably stay healthier longer, still make some money, play a longer career, and not have to worry about every year he's getting carted off Game 6 of the season. So there's that. And speaking of guys who get carted off, the Sam Bradford thing, what do you think there? Do you think Philly's using him as bait?
I don't know. If we were kicking around the scenario of him going to the Jets and them trading up for Mariota, but Chip Kelly came out and said they're not going to. What do you say? Not going to mortgage their future to trade up to get him. Plus, I mean, if it means anything, I don't know. But the Jets picked